Hey there cats, good time of the day to you and thank you for tuning into my channel. Today I've decided to play Need for Speed ProStreet once again because ever since I recorded that video with 1965 Pontiac GTO and Dodge Challenger, I felt that it is kind of unfair that all my other muscle cars were left in the shadow, so I've decided to record this video where every single one of my muscle cars will take a single speed track. And boy, 40 minutes, it's that long, but you know, I think it is worth it. It is worth it. Once again, I'm putting Japanese tracks on Japan, you know, Japanese music tracks on Japan speed tracks, German music on Autobahn, German race, and English tracks in Nevada. Oh, I think this is awesome, you know, I think I'm fucking genius. For once, there's an idea which I completely and, you know, utterly 100% adore because it sounds so awesome to me. It sounds just perfect, in my opinion. Also, this is the first time I've actually modded Need for Speed ProStreet. I've never did it before, well, aside from the fact that I've got 2 AI-only vinyls during my original playthrough, but I've never modded it. And now I've decided to do it, and I will get to that later. First things first, as you can see, I've put myself on the pole position. And it took a while because it is one of those lines in the VLT editor which is not signed properly, but a little bit of scientific observation, and I've managed to pick the correct line, and I think it's okay, you know, after all, I'm the king, the showdown king, the promotion king, or whatever that thing is called, so yeah, now I deserve to be on the first place. But I actually done this because the starting camera is very nice and it showcases my car when it stands at the first position from all sides. So this is something I really like, you know. And overall though, as I've played this game, I've suddenly discovered that this game is awfully broken, like completely unplayable at some points, and this is why I've decided to mod it eventually, because boy, this is a hot fucking mess in the area of car physics. It seems like during my original playthrough I was incredibly lucky and picked all the right cars for all the right places, so nothing was, well, there were some points where I've kind of figured out that something wrong, like with that Dodge Challenger, but overall it was playable, you know, it was playable. Nowadays, as I've converted all my muscle cars to be speed cars, and this is, by the way, one of the other things that EA Games did absolutely horribly, the fact that you cannot convert your car from one class to another without losing your custom vinyl and all the settings. So I've used some kind of a save editor or car editor, which simply converted my cars, like 2 clicks and it's done. And this is awesome, so now all my cars are in muscle class, and as I've converted all of them, all my muscle cars in the speed class, so to say, class, I'm not sure how to call it. Either way, as I'm taking them all now in the speed class, as I was taking them through the speed tracks, I've realized how much cars are broken. Check out this Mustang for example. It obviously scratches. On occasion, it scratches the asphalt for whatever reason, it touches the ground. I'm not even sure why, but it happens on occasion here and there. And overall, well, so that? It just... I don't know why this happens, really. Overall, modern cars are way more reliable than old muscle cars, but still, as you can see, even modern cars are not... you know, invincible, are not exempt is the word? My English still sucks, boy. So many years and it still sucks, man. Either way, yeah, even new muscle cars here and there get problems. Even new cars, not only muscle cars, new cars. And man, it is at some point it got just obnoxious, and I've decided to get rid of it because, you know, I wanted this video not to be some kind of proof of something. Oh, I don't know what. I've just wanted to make a nice showcase of muscle cars rolling around the tracks, and it was made nigh impossible by all the physics glitches that I've encountered. It's just incredible, you know. Back in the days, I've never noticed that. Somehow, I don't know how. Maybe I was just able, you know, playing the game and having fun, but no, really though, some of this became unplayable. But, you know, as we will go through the races, I will point out what's what. Just look at this Mustang, it jumps, and here it comes. Yeah, here comes one that almost crashed me. It just, on occasion, touches the surface and goes haywire. I don't know why. I didn't fix this car. In fact, I didn't fix much cars. Most of them are still unfixed, but I've only really got to fix those which I've had to fix in order to just, you know, make the track passable. So now comes another Japan short track, and this one is actually pretty good, though this GTO towards the end of the track it will, you know, it will get his share of troubles, and you will see it. Overall though, what can I say, man? I really didn't expect Need for Speed ProStreet to be this bugged. Oi. Like, in my head it was, it is a good game, you know, this, especially this speed mode, it is simply amazing. This is why I'm hanging out here so much, just driving along a street track 400 kilometers per hour is cool, but man, it is barely possible on some cars, as it turned out. Good thing nowadays we have VLT editor, but on release, boy, if you chose Camaro to be your speed car, man, or Chevrolet Chevelle, man, you've probably had a terrible game right there. Oi, I've also got my speed limit back. As you probably remember, in my first video I've turned the speed limit off, kinda accidentally. I've tried several mods which I've downloaded, and one of them had this line I didn't notice. Now I've actually browsed through the mod and found the line and turned it back on. It is not really a mod, just, you know, kind of a fan patch. I don't know how it's called, don't remember. If you'll allow me just to check my backup drive, I'll tell you what the thing is called actually. So we go Save Games, NFS, Tools, ProStreet. I believe it is called Need for Speed ProStreet X Opts. Extended options, I believe it is called. Yeah, something like that. And have you saw that, how that Pontiac GTO just lost a lot of speed for no reason? Not every car does it, so such kind of glitches really put some cars at great disadvantage to the other cars, and it makes the game completely unfair to the fans of specific cars. Here actually comes the first car I've modded, Plymouth Hemi Cuda. I'll get to it a bit later, but back to my original point. So yeah, I've turned the speed limit back on. I'm not sure it's crucial really, but you know, kind of feels better to be closer to the original idea or something, or at least so I think. So yeah, I've decided to turn speed limit back on. That's how I remember this game, you know. That's why I play Need for Speed, GTA, Vice City and Liberty City Stories in 4.3, even though they have widescreen options, because that's how I remember those games. I always play them 4:3 as aspect ratio in 4:3 aspect, and so when I've recorded them these years around, I've felt like, no, 16:9 is something off. And so it is for the speed limit, even though I kinda like my cars going faster than 400 kilometers per hour, but still, you know, I've always played them with the speed limit on, so yeah, feels a bit off having it off. So, modded Hemi Cuda. This is probably the first vehicle which I've decided to mod because it started to get a bit, you know, insufferable. And here comes probably the lightest mod. I've only really adjusted the aero coefficient. You see, muscle cars, old muscle cars by default, have all their aero coefficients set to 2. Their value is 2, which is really not much at all, because compared to other cars, like average modern car has its air coefficient set to 5. And so I did just that. I've changed Barracuda's coefficient from 2 to 5. And it immediately became a much more drivable car. As you can see, I'm now able to go through the Autobahn without crashing, even though there are still nasty moments here and there, and one more moment to come. Let it be a surprise for you. But still, just changing the aero coefficient is good enough to make the car less or more drivable. But here we go! Have you seen that? It just started to jump for no reason at all. And I've almost lost control. That's how Need for Speed ProStreet works, man. It's a fucking mess of bugs, for real. Still, I've decided it's alright for Hemi Cuda, even though that sudden jump towards the end of the race kinda made me feel that I will need to make more adjustments and mods to the cars. Here we come on the Japan track, and this is actually one of the last races I've recorded. I've recorded Japan races where in the last order because they are the hardest ones to me. This is the only track which has a moment where you have to stick to one line only, and there are road work going on, so yeah. And this is also the moment where I've started to get mad at Need for Speed ProStreet, because Corvette ruined itself on this very first jump I've passed. And I was angry, boy, I was out of my mind. Like, alright, all kind of glitches are alright, but really? You make the track literally unpassable because my muscle car ruins itself on the very first jump. I can't even get into the race properly. Of course I can kind of brake, but really? I want my muscle car to be cool. I wanted to... I mean, it is not a realistic game. It has several points of being, you know, more real than previous Need for Speed entries, but still, it is not a simulator, so I might as well want my Corvette to be awesome. I want it to look like it's tearing up the track like some kind of Pagani Zonda, I don't know. Either way, crashing on the very first jump really kinda made me mad, you know. It was really So I've decided to mod my wet properly. I've upped the air coefficient, and after some toying around I figured out that the main values that got to be changed if you want your muscle cars to get away with all this jumping and overall pass bumps better are the values which are named shock blowout, shock digression and shock valving. Yeah, I wrote them down for me so I won't forget. Also, changing the stiffness of suspension helps, and I've also pumped the Corvette's power along the way to make it go faster, because as you up the aero coefficient, so the car slows down. And that's why my Corvette is almost 1000 horsepower strong. So it is able to go fast with the aero coefficient of 7. As you can see, the end result is gorgeous. The car is extremely maneuverable, very fast, and it takes all the jumps with little to no troubles. It is... You know what? I love it. It is awesome. It is awesome. It is how it should have been. I mean, why not? As I've said once again, even though this game has more incline toward the realism, it is still an arcade game, and I wanna be able to make my Corvette as cool as Pagani Zonda. I still can beat Pagani Zonda in grip, for example, or in other like drag in other race modes. So why not being able to go on par with speed challenge just because a couple of bumps ruins my race, man. This was really infuriating to me. That's why I've got rid of it. And I hope you're alright with it. For showcase purposes, it works. Oh, well, back in Nevada, and this is one more unmodded race. This Charger was actually my drag car. By the way, that Vette of mine in Japan, perhaps you can tell, but that was one of my drift muscle cars. Yeah. And I've put a lot of effort in the paint job of that Corvette. That paint job cost me several, you know, I dread to say several hours. It took a lot of hours, probably several days. I really spent a lot of time on the paint job of that Corvette, especially making one of its headlights of a different color. It was very hard with in-game tools. Nowadays I'd probably just make a palette swap, took some vinyl and repaint it for my Corvette in Photoshop. It doesn't feel so criminal nowadays, you know, though back in the days I was kind of hell-bent on making all the paint jobs in, you know, in the in-game editors. Yeah, these days around I'd probably take it to the Photoshop. Alright, back to the Charger. This Charger is unmodded, and as you can see, it pretty much has the same trouble as the Mustang. It occasionally scrapes the surface of the track, for whatever reason. Now, I've actually tried to modify the Charger, to modify the ride height, but at some point, and that is precisely the point which you need to make it not scrap the surface of the track, you know? And as you like put it high enough for it not to touch the asphalt, it also is the point where it starts to lose a lot of its drivability, so to say. The aerodynamics, I believe, become weird, and so the physics, become even more weirder. The Charger just becomes undrivable. I guess it is fixable if you do extensive modification of aero coefficient, suspension and whatnot else. Yeah, I guess it is possible to fix the car, but I've decided that after all, yeah, it's good enough. Let it scrub the surface. It's I mean, it's still 20 seconds slower than the Pontiac GTO, the 1965 one, but it works for the showcase. It's just, you know, it's possible to do it, but I guess at that point I still didn't think that I will go that far in modifications, and at the same time the Charger is the hard car to mod properly. Even with all my edits in VLT editor, they are still less or more pick and poke right now. So, as I've said, this is my first attempts modifying Need for Speed ProStreet, so they are kind of raw and far from being, you know, awesome. And therefore, modifying the Charger properly would have taken me a lot of time. Yes, I've decided. Yeah, we'll do like this. It's cool enough, by the way. It's cool enough. It works for me, for the showcase, and it is fast enough, even though I feel like the car has the power to go faster. And if it wouldn't touching the asphalt, its engine would have make it go way faster than this. I just feel it pushing onwards, and it can't go because each time it touches the surface it loses a bit of its speed. Also, boy, the Charger is big, and woo, it really feels how big Charger is on a speed track. You know, I've never drove it in a grip or speed before, and it just feels how big is that car, the way it turns. That's something the physics of ProStreet made really, really nice. You do not feel it on Pontiac GTO, but you feel it just right with the Dodge Charger. And I also wanted to say that occasional touching of the surface were not problems on my Charger, because it was, as I've mentioned, a drag car. And so it spent pretty much the whole quarter mile and a good portion of the half mile with its front in the air. It was an awesome wheel stander. So yeah, I've never even quite noticed how much it touches the surface of the track until I've made it a speed car. You know, I kinda miss some things from Need for Speed Carbon, and it still baffles me that they've removed these options from muscle cars. I mean, most of the muscle cars are from Need for Speed are the same ones that were in Need for Speed Carbon either way. So why they didn't just ported all those visual options that were in Need for Speed Carbon? Is this because of the damage? But it doesn't seem that much work that had to be done in order for the new damage models to feel nicely. And most of all, I miss the superchargers, of course. The inability to put superchargers on muscle cars in Need for Speed ProStreet while being able to do a proper wheelie, you know, kind of feels weird. It should have been there, especially since in Carbon we've had superchargers and we didn't have drag races and couldn't do wheelies. Oh boy, how much better Need for Speed ProStreet would have felt with superchargers on muscle cars. Oh boy, well, Shelby GT 500 was modified as well with aero coefficient and pretty much nothing else. And here comes Chevy Chevelle. Oh yes! This is my car. And I mean my car, man. This is the car which took me pretty much through the whole Need for Speed ProStreet. It was my main grip car, and I've defeated lots of people in this car. It came to me from the first battle machine sessions all the way up to the very finale of the game, to the Grip King Ray Kruger, I believe is his name. Pardon me if I'm pronouncing it incorrectly. And of course the Showdown King Ray Watanabe. Oh yeah, it was hard to defeat the Grip King on this car, of course, because yeah, he drives BMW, I drive a huge muscle car. And of course, it took a lot of dirty tactics, a lot of blocking, a lot of, you know, a lot of physical contact in order for me to properly overtake all the other fancy Lamborghinis, Porsches and whatever else I've met during my grip races. But I'm proud to say that this Chevelle won it all fair and square. I don't remember ever using cheats with it. It is an awesome muscle car which took me through the Need for Speed ProStreet. Yes, this is my machine here. Unfortunately, on the speed track it proved to suffer way too much suspension glitches, so to say. And what can I say? I've modified it, but I guess it's about time I put this car on easy street, because, well, as I've said, it took me through the whole game, so I might as well make it easy for it this time. And that's what I've done, and this feels awesome as it glides on the Autobahn. Just look at the power, man. It feels so fucking cool. Even without nitros, it has the power to take it to the 390 to 400. See? The speed doesn't fall down. It's still at 400 even without nitro. This is probably the only muscle car in my garage that can kind of be on par with 65 Pontiac GTO. Really, it is awesome. It is amazing. I love my Chevelle. Alright, now here comes Cadillac CTS-V in Japan, and boy, don't pay too much attention to the paint job. It was an exercise in bad taste for me. Here it comes, but I love this car. It is one of my dragsters, and boy, was I right to put it in the dragsters. Because as I've put it in the speed class, oh, the car just doesn't want to turn at all. Boy, it feels heavy. It feels as it is like the heaviest car in my garage. But you know what? This is kind of what I've expected from a muscle car. So yeah, I like the way it handles, and that's why CTS-V is unmodified, even though it was very tempting to do something with its suspension. It is overall kinda good, but on several occasions, and unfortunately all those occasions comes towards the end of this track, it once again suffers from these weird bump glitches where it simply starts jumping on its own. And yeah, more than few of my attempts ended on the very last line of this Japan speed track, and it was very tempting to modify the suspension, but eventually I've made do without. You know, overall I want to say it is weird how much people online complain about Pontiac GTO 65 in the speed class, so to say, being broken, because overall, as I found out, GTO 65 is one of the most properly tuned cars in the whole speed class. When you take it to the speed tracks, you know? It is really stable, it soaks up all the bumps, and overall I feel like most of the settings should be copied from 65 GTO to other cars. People said it is awful, but once again, really, it is one of the best cars out there when I take it to the speed track. Boy, I guess most people never really tried to take other muscles to the speed tracks, because other muscles are way more awful to drive than 65 GTO. And I guess it makes sense, because 65 GTO after all was the boss car, so it kinda had to be balanced out, even though Nate Denver still didn't handle it right. And it was probably the easiest kink in the whole game. Yet still, his car is one of the most balanced out there. I can only wonder how bad it will be with the other cars, you know. By the way, speaking of Charger and Mustang which scrape the surface of the track, I think it is actually possible to fix them simply by choosing other body kits. Some of those body kits probably have a bit different hitboxes, and so other body kits might place the car, you know, not physically higher, but make its body a bit higher. Oh boy, check it out. Everyone's total, it's safe for the Carlos Galliano in his Supra. Even Ivan Tarkovsky crashed his car, and that's a rarity. Oh boy. But you really can't blame AI for crushing these cars. Now when I've learned myself what kind of bad circus these physics are, I can't blame AI for this bad driving. And here, by the way, I've also modified the lineup just for the sake of it. I started to get rather late in the game. This was probably second to last race I've recorded, and I've decided, yeah, let's put a lot of Apex Glide drivers out here. But alright, back on topic, yeah. As I've said, probably that issues that some cars scratch the surface can be simply fixed by choosing a different body kit, but you know, I'm not that kind of guy, because as I've said, I've modified these cars, I've drove them through the whole game. Mustang was one of my main drift cars, on par with Chevy Corvette, and Charger was my main dragster, well, obviously. So changing body kit on them would be, you know... And vinyls, especially Charger's vinyl, but well, Mustang's vinyl as well, they are specifically, you know, tailored to those specific body kits, so if I'll change the body kit I will have to spend time and remake the vinyl. Yeah, it doesn't feel anyhow awesome, so yeah, I've decided that I'd rather stay with those body kits and let them scrub the surface. On Mustang it is not even much of an issue, because it only like touches it on occasion. Though it can sense your car, of course, overall on Mustang it's not much of an issue. It's much more of an issue on Charger, but yeah, what's done is done. As I've said, I've decided against modifying it after all, because some subtle changes I've made the car undrivable, and any further modifications felt like too much time spent for not much gain. This Roadrunner here is another very peculiar thing in the files of the game. because it has an aero coefficient set to 10. How much is that, will you ask? Well, as you probably remember, I've already mentioned that all other old muscle cars have the aero coefficient set to 2. And Pagani Zonda has its aero coefficient set to 7. Yeah, that's how much of awesomeness Need for Speed ProStreet physics are. In the files of Need for Speed ProStreet, Plymouth Roadrunner has more aerodynamics than Pagani Zonda. Take that for a simulator game. Albeit I gotta say, it makes the car very pleasant drive. It really sucks up all the bumps nicely, and its turns, even though the car feels heavy, the turns are very cool. Overall, aero coefficient of 10 makes this car very pleasant drive, albeit a little slow. As you can see, the car barely can move itself up to 300 km per hour, albeit with nitros and on straight lines it does a much better job. I've tried to make it faster through the editing of the scripts, but for some reason on Plymouth Roadrunner editing its I believe the lines were called high boost and low boost. Well, editing those lines doesn't change much, if at all. The car still barely moves, even though its horsepower moves up. Oh, and now Galliano and Tarkovsky made it. So, well, I've decided that it will be a better option to simply give Roadrunner infinite nitros. This way it kinda make it even almost on par with Charger in terms of time. I believe it was only like 4 seconds slower than the Charger, and perhaps if I've used the nitros more aggressively I could have even overtaken the Charger, but as I've said, I'm not making a time competition here or something, I'm just making a nice showcase. And you can't deny that the track looked much more action-packed with infinite nitros, because this nitros effect is way cool, so having an infinite nitros on Roadrunner overall makes kind of a cool show for the whole Nevada track it was ridden upon. It was whatever. I hope you get my idea. Either way, here comes Dodge Challenger, and this car is a monster and probably the main reason I've took the speed limit back on. Can you see it? Take a look at the speedometer for a moment. It's on 5th gear, and make no mistake, the car has the 6th gear. It just never needs it with the speed limit, because 5th gear is all the way up to 400 and something. In fact, without speed limit, the car goes somewhere in 500 kilometers per hour area. This is crazy. Of course, I could keep the speed limit off and simply rebalance the car, make it top speed less, but I've decided it is better just to keep the speed limit on for all cars and much more fair, so to say. By the way, actually each car has its own speed limit, and Charger has 378 speed limit, as you can see right now. Yep, here it is. Not 402. Same goes for the Roadrunner, by the way, as you could have noticed. I don't know why the DLC cars have a different speed limit, but that's EA's idea. Still, the Challenger is a monster. The way it drives, the way it handles, the way it takes all the bumps and simply like glides all over them. Challenger is the killer of a speed machine, and actually it is so overpowered I've barely used it. As far as I remember, Challenger was not even properly released after all, it was an unfinished car. It definitely has several body kits unfinished, and that's why it was using a stock body kit in my race. I've still felt like putting it in the garage, because come on, this is the Challenger, the best modern muscle car ever, and the design is awesome. But yeah, the car is so overpowered, it is not even fun to drive it, you know. On occasion it's cool though, and so that previous race was just this occasion. As for now, I'm driving Mercedes SL65, and yeah, you know, not American. But you know, we layout in the engine, coupe, it feels like a muscle car to me. Some kind of a cross between a muscle car and a sport car, some kind of a Corvette. And definitely better than a modern Corvette in my opinion. I don't know, maybe I have a soft spot for Mercedes, says. You remember probably... No, you doesn't. I bet you doesn't, but hey, probably there are fans of mine out there and this video will get more than 30 views. So probably you remember I've drove another Mercedes in First Forza Motorsport on the Nürburgring not so long ago, and yeah, I guess I love year 2000's Mercedeses. And a lot of Mercedeses that are before the year 2000 as well. It's only modern Mercedeses that became so fucking tasteless. Well, as most modern cars did become tasteless in my opinion. Well, challenge me on that opinion, but you know, my opinion is here to stay. I don't like modern cars. Even muscle cars lost it. Probably Challenger, by the way, is probably the only muscle car that still has some traces of its original design left. Either way, I really like Mercedeses overall, and I really like this particular Mercedes. I think my paint job really hits the nail, the style of ProStreet right here. I really like how it turned out, and it felt like I just should drive this Mercedes in Germany, you know, on Autobahn. Home track. And you know what? I'm surprised, though pleasantly so, that this Mercedes actually is slower than my Chevy Chevelle. Man, somehow Chevelle managed to beat Mercedes. I didn't expect this coming, you know. Didn't expect that at all. I thought Mercedes will take my muscle car out. As I've said, modern cars are way more powerful in Need for Speed ProStreet. Simply because they are way more aerodynamic, and yeah. That's how ProStreet works. And well, here comes Chevy Camaro, another muscle car which I've modified extensively because I've had to put it on Japan track, and much like Corvette, it crashed itself after the very first jump, so I've had to modify it a lot. I gotta say, I really like the result I've ended up with. It is a very awkward start, as it probably has too much power and it kinda wants to drive off to the side up until the 5th gear, and you gotta very lightly put it on the line. But after it makes it past the 4th gear, it becomes this pleasant, heavy, muscle-like drive, you know? It glides and it turns there. They feel powerful, you can feel the mass forcing itself into the turn. Oh yeah, very pleasant drive it is. I really like this Camaro. Even though this is one of the paint jobs of the AI racers, I've only slapped some more decals on it because I like it. It turned out to be one of my favorite cars, at least in this video. I really don't remember using it that often in the original. During my original playthrough, I believe it was one of my grip cars. And yeah, I don't remember using it way too often. In this video though, I feel like I would drive it again, gladly. You know, if I'll ever decide to recomplete Need for Speed ProStreet, I do a lot of modding with VLT editor. And I'll probably complete the whole ProStreet on a couple muscle cars. I will make them viable in every race type. Oh yeah, that's the word, not class type, and I was speaking class for the whole video. Well, fuck me, alright. So yeah, I'll make them viable in every race type. I'll make them feel really nice, and I will simply destroy, obliterate the competition. Completely unfair, yes, just look how far behind these AI drivers are, but what do I care? It's only fun when the gameplay is fun, right? And for me, gameplay is fun when the muscle car feels correct. And this race is just an example of that feeling. Oh boy, I wonder if you made it to this point. almost 40 minutes, oh boy, I've just left a piece of my heart on that bridge, I gotta say you that much. Ooh, somehow I didn't touch the wall or any sign and didn't even crash in the bridge, that was really close. So yeah, I wonder if you made it this far to the minute 40, because I gotta say one thing. Need for Speed ProStreet is much more fun to play rather than to look at. It really only feels cool in the speed races when you are driving that, when you are feeling those 400 kilometers per hour, and when you are feeling that every mistake can take you way off course and total your car. But well, it's still pleasant enough for me to watch, and hopefully it was for you as well. Stay cool, cats! Good luck!